Welcome back to our co-host James Manning, editor and publisher of Mediaweek. Well, this week we saw a new Prime Minister installed and a rise in media stocks, and now are we more likely to see reform in the media sector, or are the hopes of investors misplaced? For more on that, let's return to James Manning. James, your thoughts on this one? We have seen a significant pickup in some of the key stocks, particularly the free-to-airs. Do you think Malcolm Turnbull is more likely to go ahead with these reforms in the media space?
Well, if anybody could get them through, you would think it would be him, but I just get the feeling it's not going to be a high priority for him. I think he's got, bigger fish to fry, as they say now, that he's finally got into that top job. It's taken him a few goes. I just don't know if he'd need the grief. He might have a way to steer the reforms through. If he wins at the next election, the polls indicate the voters are pretty happy with him as the option of Prime Minister. So, yeah, it could happen in what would be his second term, I guess.
Yeah.
But nothing doing quickly, I don't think.
And what about the new Communications Minister? Any idea who that's likely to be? It's not going to be Turnbull anymore.
Joe Hockey would be an interesting one, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it?
To move from Treasurer to... and it either signals that, yeah, OK, this portfolio is very important, or it's maybe a bit of punishment.
Yeah.
I don't know which way you'd read that if he ended up there, but I guess we'll find out on Monday, yeah.
And then in other news, we've got Nine deep in discussions with Win and also Southern Cross Austereo over a new affiliation agreement. Yeah,
their current agreements with Win for areas outside the regional TV. They Win operate everywhere except northern New South Wales, which Nine own that territory themselves. I think that agreement ends at the end of 2015. They might have to do an extension, and if they do go with somebody different, Southern Cross Austereo looks like the other option. It's interesting that Grant Blackley himself, running Southern Cross Austereo now, knows all about affiliation deals because he used to organise them at 10. That would leave Win to go somewhere else. They could go to 10, which possibly wouldn't be a bad option for them, despite the poorer ratings performance in regional markets. At least they're Bruce Gordon's a significant shareholder at 10, so there's some synergies there if that's where they ended up.
And moving from television and radio to print, Newspaper of the Year awards have been held over the past week. Who took out the gongs there? Yeah,
look, apparently the best newspaper in the region is the New Zealand Herald these days, so that won the big award. Yeah, it doesn't often go out of Australia, but it's the Pamper Award, so it covers Australia and the Greater Asia area.
Okay.
Newcastle Herald was the best regional newspaper. It's the second year. I think it's actually a three-peat, so it's the third time they've held this award. Been some significant cutbacks in the editorial there, so it'd be interesting to see if they can stand up for a fourth time. The Weekend Australian won the best weekend newspaper, and that was the second year in a row there. Okay. And the Gympie Times picked up the smaller sort of regional space. So it was wins for all the major players, News Corp, APN News and Media and Fairfax, so they looked after everybody.
Okay, and switching back to radio, someone new at the top of ARN, and he doesn't have any previous radio experience, I believe. A little
bit of a surprise, I guess. Tony Kendall, we've had him on the show a few times, but he's always been talking about print, either at News Corp, where he was head of advertising, and he moved across to Bauer Media. Magazine advertising there, so we don't know when he's going. He could turn up in his new role in November. But look, we spoke to Kieran Davis about why pick someone with that radio experience, and his thoughts were, look, we pay a lot of people in ARN with good radio experience for their radio nous. It's good to get somebody who's worked at the top level in other areas, namely advertising, and because it's a whole new area these days. You've got to do looking for partnerships. With different companies, different offerings, right across digital as well. Tony Kendall's pretty up to speed on all that sort of stuff, so he thinks it's just a really good fit for the company.
And 3AW in Melbourne, that's now run by Macquarie Radio, and they're looking at some programming changes there. How do you think that's going to go down with the Melbourne audience? Yeah,
look, they're really going to have to be careful with this, I guess. They've had a daily program called Sports Today, ran every day from 6 till 8 p.m. Gerard Healy and Dwayne Russell, very heavy on AFL content, virtually every night of the year, 360 days of the year. They did a bit of other sport that's been cut back for an hour. They're going to network in Ross Greenwood's sort of finance show every day.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with finance news, but be interesting to see how the folk of Melbourne take to that. And the very popular Nightline program has been cut back. Steve Price is going to come on air.
Okay.
It's sort of network show, but it's going to be done out of Melbourne, so it's not really a network program for the people of Melbourne. And the older 3RW audience, and there's a lot of them, will remember Steve Price. He used to be a content director there. He's been on air before down there, so yeah, they'll be almost welcoming him home, I guess, and it's sort of a transition, if you like, from the existing evening program to Steve Price. So.
And speaking of radio programming, there seems to be a real focus now on special events in terms of earning the dollars and also attracting audiences now, James. What's that all about? Yeah,
well, it's a part of that thing, I guess. You're looking at a new revenue stream, gives you a bit of a marketing bang as well. We've seen Nova pioneer a lot of that space with their Nova Red Room.
Okay.
Austereo and now Southern Cross Austereo used to have something called the world famous Rooftop. It's come back more recently. Now they're going to give it a big focus, so they're thinking regional as well. They've really only ever done them in Sydney and Melbourne. They're looking at their other metro markets. They're talking regional. They're also talking international. iHeartRadio is the sort of a brand for ARN. The big iHeartRadio weekend is in Las Vegas. It's actually on this weekend. It's a massive music event every year. Suddenly iHeart people will be there again this year to sort of get some of the learnings, and over the next 12 months they're going to really ramp up some live events.
Okay, and even the Festival of Chocolate we saw.
It's maybe more my place.
Yeah, me too.
These days, but yeah, that was Smooth FM, which is number one in Sydney now. They had that last weekend and it did some massive business, you know. There were just crowds everywhere. I popped down there to have a look, get some chocolate, and yeah, it was fantastically successful, you know.
Yeah.
And that almost becomes another revenue stream, and again, they get massive marketing out of it as well.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, it's time now to take a look at some of the ratings, but on television, and this is for week 37 free to air. And taking a look there, 9 News Sunday on the top, followed by 7.
Yep, lots of news there. The Block pushing its way into the top 10 there. That was actually the launch of the new season of The Block, so it started reasonably well for now.
Okay, yeah, not too bad. And then finishing up with Sunday night, turning the page now. 9 News.
And Gruen the odd one out there, I guess, and The Bachelor, I guess, a lot of news, but Gruen, Bachelor's been doing very well. We've been tracking that this year. Gruen, that was the first week back for Gruen. Will Anderson, yeah, just started really well for them.
Okay, and a good year for Bachelor as well, compared to other seasons?
Oh, yeah, look, this is the best year of The Bachelor. We'll see next week how it's ended up on the chart, but it's going to go off the Richter scale, I think.
Okay, let's move on to the subscription TV ratings now for week 37, starting with the most watched sports programs.
Yeah, look, a lot of finals football there.
Yeah, finals football taking over that whole screen, in fact.
Yeah, all 4 of the 5 there.
Okay, and there you can see the top 5 non-sport shows on subscription TV.
Yeah, look, a movie in the top spot, and again, it's a split between Fox 8 and Lifestyle. Each got a couple of shows in that top 5.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about news in the television space at the moment, and there's plenty of shows launching this week in key time slots. Let's take a look at some of those. Yeah, look, the big deal is 7:30, I guess. The 7:30 slot is often key to winning the night. You know, they always talk about news as important. Well, it is, but you've really got to own that 7:30 slot to be allowed to call yourself ranking number 1. The X Factor has come back in this week, and it's sort of blown away the other competitors. The Block, it's really pushed The Block into second place. Yep. Although on Wednesday evening, The Bachelor actually crept up and knocked off The X Factor. Okay.
So The Bachelor was doing a bit of damage there, but the rest of the week in that time slot has belonged to The X Factor.
And The Chase, that's 7's new lead-in for the news? Yeah,
look, that news hour is still really important, so that 5:30 p.m. slot on weekdays, you really want to try and own that. 9's owned that lately with Hot Seat, the Eddie Maguire hosted game show. The Chase is 7's latest attempt at sort of get back some audience at that time of night. The interesting thing is it goes for an hour, which is a big ask for a lot of viewers, but it started really well. It's won its first 3 nights, so they'd be very happy with that. Can they keep some of that momentum? We'll probably have to wait a couple of weeks to find out.
And the poor old Sunrise crew must have got a shock when they got off their planes in Europe this week to host from different cities, I think 5 cities in 5 days or something like that, and there was a leadership spill. Did they come under fire, and did it make a difference?
They've copped a lot of negative media about that, being out of the country, and it's probably not a good look, I guess, because politics is a reasonably significant part of the show each day, but it's not the main part. And look, the show's really there to earn some revenue. So Seven have done that this week big time. They've sold some sponsorships, which is why they're overseas on this trip. I think Flight Centre is the main sort of partner behind all that. So, and that's worked really well. The ratings have been really good for the show. I think they've had their biggest day of the year. They were up over 400,000. Wow. The margin between sunrise and today, which was getting closer, is pushed apart again. So it's been a very successful week for Seven. And they also, you know, they did cover the leadership spill, albeit from a distance.
Yeah, while enjoying scones and tea, I think might have been the case. Just very quickly, finally, Nine, given the green light, they've got a bit of a Q&A thing that they're going to start up on Channel 9. Yeah,
they're calling it their equivalent of Q&A, or as David Gingell told us, a less brainy version, if you like. And he said that's no reflection on the host, Carl Stefanovic. Also, Mark Latham, who attracts a lot of media commentary, they're going to let those two loose on Sunday nights. An interesting time slot, 9:30 on a Sunday night. It'll be a big win for Nine if they can get a reasonable audience, because that'll attract maybe a bit of money, a bit of sponsorship, and some viewers. It'll be on after 60 Minutes, starting in October.
All right, thanks, James. Appreciate that.
Thanks,
James Manning, editor of Media Week. There, that's all we have time for on the program. From the team here, thanks for your company.